Welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the Apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC, Rich, and I'm joined by my guest, Rory MacLeod. Rory, welcome to the show.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
All right, Rory, let's kick it off here. How long have you been playing PBTA games, and what was your gateway?
I started with Dungeon World. I was introduced to PBTA games at a game day here in Columbus. Some friends of mine invited me to this game day, and I had never played any PBTA games at that point. And this gentleman was running a game called Dungeon World. He had bound his own Dungeon World books in these cool leather embossed covers, and I thought that was very cool.
That is dope.
Yeah, he was very engaging, and I thought, yeah, let's give this a try. A couple friends of mine who also had never played, we all got together and played this game called Dungeon World, and I thought it was great. He dropped us in the middle of a dungeon with really no setup. He told us a little bit about the game. I want to say he spent about 10 minutes probably talking about Dungeon World, and then we just jumped right in. And I really like that. That's a method that I use in my games as well. And it was a great gateway into this sort of game. Since that time, I've played most of the other major PBTA games. I've played Apocalypse World, I've played Masks, I've played Urban Shadows, I've played a number of the other games, so I dig it.
Oh man, you didn't mention Spirit of 77, the game we played a few times together?
I have played that, and I ran that. I want to say I ran that for some friends too.
Oh, that's killer. That's killer. I like that game a lot.
Yeah. And when I was running it, I had a little Bluetooth speaker, and I had like greatest hits of the 70s playing while we were playing.
Oh, that's dope. Tyler, who's one of the staunch Gauntlet GMs, what he would do when he ran over Hangouts is because he wanted to record it, and so he knew playing music, could get some DMCA takedown stuff. He would link us during break, like let's take a 5-minute bio break, and
Sure.
he would have a playlist set up with like 5 minutes worth of awesome 70s music. It was really great.
Okay, that's cool.
Really
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
He's a clever guy. All right, let's jump on over here and read a Sitch.
All right.
Read a Sitch. So, Rory, I thought it'd be cool if we talked a little bit about PBTA games as con games or one-shots versus ongoing games. You got some thoughts on that?
I do. So I have quite a bit of experience running at conventions and running one-shots with my own game, Infinite Galaxies, which we'll talk about. And I have some pretty strong feelings about the best way to do this. In fact, in the book, I talk about running at a con, a one-shot versus an ongoing game. So I feel like one of the potential pitfalls in PBTA is an extended amount of setup in terms of setting creation, establishing the characters and things. And I feel like in a limited experience like a convention or a one-shot, I think that you need to spend the bulk of your time on the action and on getting people excited about the game. And this isn't to say that some people don't find setting creation and character establishing to be fun, and in some circles that's considered part of play. I think it is important, but I think that the amount of time you spend on establishing all that stuff should be relative to how long you intend to play. Generally, as a rule of thumb, when I run Infinite Galaxies or any kind of PBTA game at a convention or a one-shot, I tend to do about 15 to 20 minutes of that for a 4-hour session.
Okay, 4 hour. That's an interesting ratio. Okay, so 15 minutes worth of setup for a 4-hour session. That is quick.
It's a couple questions, and I focus it on the characters. So I say, don't worry about, for example, for Infinite Galaxies, don't worry about the galaxy as a whole. Assume these things are happening in the galaxy, but let's talk about how your characters fit in. So what are you guys doing? Are you on the run from some organization? Are you trying to do something for some group? Are you a member of some organization? How do we get your character plugged in to our game? For a one-shot, for a convention game. And so that I can take that information back and say, okay, so I need to involve this organization or this piece of the setting in our game. Whereas I don't want to spend a lot of time spouting information about what I think the setting's about when it may not even come into play.
That makes sense.
Whereas in an ongoing game, let's say I'm going to run 6 sessions or 8 sessions or whatever, I'm going to spend a lot more time on setting things up, especially if I plan to, use this material later on. So like in session 1, I may not blow out everything that I have. I may, say, okay, here's some things that we're going to probably cover in this game. and then I'm going to start getting information from the players about the things that their characters are involved with, and then I'll figure out how to mix those in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also going to keep some stuff back for later. I don't want to use everything I have prepped, right? I don't want to use it all at once, and it may not even come up. So I really want to limit myself to stuff that I think is likely to come up in the first session, and then kind of pepper in stuff later on as it goes. I ran a recent game, it went about 4 sessions, and I had 2 pages front and back of material that I wrote ahead of time, and that was it. And it was all just kind of bullet point stuff, and I used about a quarter of it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
But I could have sat there in the beginning of the session, the first session, and just basically read or paraphrased all that stuff for them. But they didn't use it. It didn't come up. And so I was like, I'm just going to bring this stuff up when it comes up. And I'm not going to dictate to them what's going to happen during the game.
When you're running a longer type of game, do you do most of your work front-loaded before first session when you run Infinite Galaxies or other games?
If I'm going to run an ongoing game, I do like to have a little bit of prep ahead of time. I like to at least have something to fall back on just in case the players don't give me enough. Some players are better than others at giving you stuff. Some players just like, I want to play the robot and I want to shoot stuff. So that's not really give you any story there. Sometimes you have to give them things to play off of. So I do like to have that. But like I said, I keep most of that stuff in reserve until it comes up. So I have logical underpinnings for things that are happening in the game for me, and if they ask me questions, I can answer them, but I don't dictate that stuff to the players necessarily. I feel like my job as the game master is to put the characters in an interesting situation and then see what happens.
How do you end it for a one-shot? What do you look for to try to bring a con game or a one-shot to a close?
Well, ideally, you want people to have an exciting ending. So you want to be building towards something. And so what I tend to do in let's say a 4-hour session, because that's usually what I run into at Origins and things like that, I'll have 3 kind of set pieces building in my mind as I'm running the game. I mean, this is something I'm doing real time. I'm not thinking about it ahead of time, but I kind of have 3 set pieces, and the third set piece is the big climax. So I limit the game, if I can, to being able to end it on a high note, being able to end it on something cool, like a big explosion, or they finally escape from the ship that's crashing, or, some kind of cool ending where they can go, wow, that was a really cool game, rather than being like, oh, we're out of time, sorry. So that's like the worst ending, is like, oh, we're out of time.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we are out of time for this segment. Let's jump on to open our brain to this Infinite Galaxies thing you mentioned. Open your brain. So, Rory, you have currently, as this episode comes out, on Kickstarter, a PBTA game by the name of Infinite Galaxies. I gotta be honest, I remember Infinite Galaxies from a table tent a few years ago at Origins. And it even inspired me and Lowell to create table tents of our own, because we're like, man, this is a cool little thing to have out here for games on demand. So yeah, I've known about Infinite Galaxies as an entity that exists for a while, but here's the Kickstarter. So, Infinite Galaxies, tell me a little bit about it. What's the setting? What's this game about?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I've been developing this game since 2015, so it's been going on for quite a while. And I don't want to say that I've been doing it constantly since 2015, but that's how long I've been thinking about doing this. The genesis of the game initially, this is right after I started playing Dungeon World. Some friends of mine were playing this Star Trek RPG from FASA, which is from like the late 80s, and it was terrible. It was just god-awful. I'm like, this is painful. And I just started playing Dungeon World, and I was like, wait a minute, I can make them a hack of Dungeon World that will be way better than this Star Trek game, and then just use it for Star Trek. So that's the genesis of Infinite Galaxies, and as I started developing it, and it was just going to be just for me and my friends, because obviously I don't have a license to make Star Trek stuff, right?
Yeah.
But as it went along, I was like, wait a minute, I can make a more general version of this. At the time, there was not another sci-fi PBTA game. So I thought, well, why don't I make a more general version that you can run any kind of science fiction with, rather than just Star Trek. You can do it with Battlestar Galactica or Firefly or whatever you want, and I could sell it, instead of being limited to handing it out to my friends and stuff for a Star Trek license. So that's kind of where Infinite Galaxies started. And in my gaming past, which has been going on since 1984. I've played a lot of games. I've played, obviously, the Dungeons & Dragons. I've played Marvel Superheroes, Champions, all kinds of games early on. And then I've, like, World of Darkness. And so I've got a lot of experience, a lot of different kinds of games. One thing I've never found that I liked was a science fiction RPG.
Mm-hmm.
I played Star Wars, which is great, but Star Wars has a lot of overhead. So when people come into a Star Wars game, they're expecting certain things. So you don't have the freedom, even if you set a Star Wars game in some weird place in the galaxy, you still have certain overhead from the setting that you kind of have to deal with. And you have established alien species, you have the Force, you have the Empire, and all these things. So I wanted to have a game where you could literally run any kind of game you wanted to, rather than be beholden to a certain intellectual property or a given setting. That said, Infinite Galaxies can totally be used for a lot of those kind of stories if you want to. But the nice thing is you don't have to worry about somebody else developing a game for the license that you like. So if you like Dune and you want to run a Dune-style game in that universe, you can totally do that with Infinite Galaxies. So my goal here, and I know this is different than some PBTA. So some PBTA games are very tightly focused. Infinite Galaxies is the opposite. It is very broad. It is kind of like a toolbox for you to run whatever kind of a game you want to run, whatever setting you're interested in, so that you have a way to do that without needing to buy a different book for each setting that you're interested in.
Now, what are the mechanics that are different in Infinite Galaxies versus Apocalypse World, and how do you give a tool set for the realization of a sci-fi canon that you create or existing within a sci-fi canon that you already have picked?
Infinite Galaxies started its life as a Dungeon World hack, so it's much closer to Dungeon World than Apocalypse World, tonally and also mechanically. So I have changed quite a few things from its initial incarnation as being a Dungeon World hack, but the playbooks look like Dungeon World playbooks, sort of. The basic moves are essentially Dungeon World-esque, so it plays much more like Dungeon World than Apocalypse World. So comparing this to Dungeon World, the biggest difference is that the experience system is completely changed. So instead of getting experience for failing a roll, you get experience for triggering your drives and relationships. So your character has a number of drives that you'll mark on your sheet. You have a list of 6 that you get to pick from. You pick 2 of those for each milestone, and I'll go over that in a moment. And you also have relationships that work kind of like bonds, but the biggest difference between relationships and bonds, relationships require you to do something with another character or for another character to another character. They always involve the other character in some way. So, for example, in Dungeon World, you might have a bond that says, so-and-so is likely to die in the dungeon, which is cool, but it doesn't require you to do anything, and it's also hard for you to resolve, because it's like, well, I guess if we lead them through the entire dungeon and they don't die, I can resolve it. But otherwise, it just kind of sits there, and it's like, well, this is my opinion of the guy.
Yeah.
In Infinite Galaxies, you might have, I need so-and-so to get me into a secret location. So you already have a situation where you need them to do something else with you.
I see.
And so when you trigger that in the story, you get XP.
Oh, cool.
The biggest difference is rather than relying on a random chance of you failing a die roll, you get to control that. You get to say, okay, I'm going to drive towards this sort of an action so that I get XP. And hopefully people aren't thinking about it mechanically like that, but I think there's a little bit of a tendency to, and that's okay, because that's the design intent. I want the players to be thinking about what their drives and relationships are as they're doing stuff, because that's how the majority of their XP is going to be generated.
The way you're describing drives, is it possible for someone to play like a mercenary character, they get a job, and then the player sets that drive to be getting this job done? Could you do that?
Well, the drives are pre-written. They're meant to be kind of broad, but you get to change them. During the game, we'll introduce various milestones, and a milestone is this is the thing the group is trying to do. For example, you might have, rescue the princess as a milestone. So when the milestone is introduced, you pick 2 of your drives and say, these are the drives that I'm going to have active right now. And you have other ones you can pick later. So if the next milestone is investigate this strange, artifact or something, then you might choose different drives that are more investigative in nature.
Huh.
So you get to change those during the course of the game, and then when you trigger those, you get XP just like the relationships.
Now, the drives are defined by the playbook? Is that correct?
Yes. Each playbook has 6 drives that you get to pick from.
Okay.
And they're all things that are based on things that the playbook should be good at doing. So, for example, the scientist has different drives than the soldier because they do different things.
Sure, sure. Which would you say is a more important thing for a player to look at when making a playbook choice? The moves of the playbook or the drives?
Well, definitely the moves. The playbooks in Infinite Galaxies start with a set of default moves the playbook gets, and then you have 3 packages of starting moves that you get to choose from right off the bat. So if you're the soldier, you can be a tactician, a munitions guy, or a medic. And so those give you different starting moves. So you want to look at those and say, well, let's see, I want to be a munitions guy because I want to blow stuff up. That's cool. Or I want to be the combat medic because I want to help heal the group when necessary. So you get to customize your guy right off the bat. And in fact, you could have 2 different soldiers in the group and it'd be perfectly okay if they took different starting packages because they would play differently.
What is your favorite move? And it doesn't have to be a basic, it could be a playbook. What's your favorite move and why?
Well, can I have 2? Because I want to talk about 2 of them. If that's okay.
You rolled a 10+, so I give you a choice of 2.
All right. So I'm going to talk about Defy Danger because this is the move that gets used a lot. And the reason why I like it is because it's the most flexible move in the game. So this is about some unforeseen danger or situation comes up, and you can fall back on this move if you don't have another move that makes sense. So if your character, like some rubble falls on your character and you have to get out of it. Well, how are you trying to get out of it? Oh, I want to push it off of me. Okay, cool. So you're going to defy danger using your strength. Oh, I want to look and see if there's something maybe that's loose that I can maybe wriggle free. Okay, maybe that's int. So I like that move because it's super flexible and it gets used all the time because there's a lot of spaces between the moves that I already have where things come up in the game, and it is the one that fills in those cracks most often.
Okay.
My other favorite move is called Knocked Out. Knocked Out is a special move. This is used when your character is knocked out, literally, in the game. So there's a damage system, which I won't go into unless it comes up, but it's a vitality and wound system. So when your character runs out of vitality and you take a wound, there's a chance, based on a roll, that you could be knocked out. So in a lot of RPGs, when your character's knocked out, you just kind of sit there and you can't do anything, and it's kind of boring. And one of my design intents for Infinite Galaxies is I don't want the game to ever be boring for any of the players or for the game master. So when you're knocked out, you as the player get these tokens that you get to use to give your buddies bonuses to their rolls.
Oh.
So you get 3 of them, and so you sit there, but you're still watching the action because you're like, oh, okay, so maybe I can give my friend a bonus. Well, if you give your friend a bonus and he gets a 10+, you get up.
Huh. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
So you're never out of the action. Maybe you can't take actions yourself, but I want to keep the player engaged. So I want them to at least be paying attention to what's going on, not sitting on their phone, not going out and getting a snack. I want them to still stay engaged.
Nice. That's pretty clever. So if you give somebody help and they hit a 10+, you're back up.
Yep, with 4 vitality. Up you go. Yeah.
Nice. Do you have to declare the help before?
Yes. Obviously. Yeah. Yeah, I also changed, if you're familiar with Dungeon World, I also changed the aid and the interfere moves. So I didn't like the way that those worked in Dungeon World and some other games where you roll to aid people. So in this game, when you aid somebody, you just aid them and you give them a bonus. But if they get a partial success, then you might also suffer whatever happens to them. So you don't want to constantly aid all the time, because that's one thing I've seen in a lot of these games is that I'm going to just aid constantly all the time. So I want there to be a little bit of a consequence for doing that.
All right, Rory, you've got me pretty hyped up here for this Infinite Galaxies. Do you think maybe we could act under fire? I could play some Plussy and give this a shot?
Definitely.
It is time to act under fire. Okay, let's figure this out. What do you need from me to make a character for Infinite Galaxies?
You need to pick a playbook. You should have those in front of you, and there's 8 of them.
What do you think about me playing a robot?
That's perfectly fine with me.
All right, I am going to play Plusbot 9000.
All right, Plusbot. Okay, so you are... Plusbot 9000 is on an ice planet. What is the name of this planet? I'm going to let you make a name.
We'll call it Zoth.
Zoth?
Zoth.
Z-O-T-H? All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So not quite Hoth.
No, it's not Hoth.
All right. You are on the ice planet Zoth. What are you doing here?
My ship crashed here.
Okay.
And after we crash landed, I volunteered to head out into the ice because I am a robot.
All right.
And this doesn't bother me nearly as much as the other members of my crew.
Excellent. All right. So you have left your ship. You know generally where it is out on the ice. You do know that there is some kind of a colony on this planet that you were trying to get to. What caused your ship to crash? That's probably a good question to ask.
Oh, pirates.
Pirates. All right. Yeah.
Space pirates. I cannot refuse the opportunity for space pirates.
Excellent. So pirates shot down your ship as you were trying to get to this colony. You know where the colony is, but you do know that it's a good trek across the ice, and it's probably a day's travel from where your ship crashed. You want to take any equipment with you, or your friends on the ship maybe injured. You think they'll be all right, but you have some supplies you could take with you if you want. Is there anything you want to take with you?
I have a matter gun, and I can traverse most terrain. Perhaps some climbing gear of some kind, some supplies to help me climb, since I am.
Sure. So what is so since you're a robot, you can look like a lot of different things. What does a Plusbot 9000 look like?
Plusbot 9000 is humanoid in appearance in that he's a bipedal, and I am giving him a gender even though he doesn't actually have reproductive organs.
Right.
If he were to wear a trench coat in shadows, one might mistake him for human.
All right,
but
sounds good.
He has a metallic sheen to his skin, so it's...
Is he silver or like copper, or what do you think?
Copper sounds awesome to me.
Okay, yeah, so he's copper colored. Okay, cool. All right, so you are heading across the ice towards this colony that you want to get to. There is a move in the game called Travel Dangerous Territories. It's a special move. And this sounds like a good thing to do because you don't know much about this planet, and it could be dangerous. So when you begin a long period of travel through dangerous and unknown territories, the GM will tell you how long it should take, which we decided was a day. Normally in this move, this is a group move, so you roll plus your wisdom. You have several rolls, so this is like a similar move from Dungeon World. In your case, we'll modify it slightly. We'll just have you roll plus your wisdom, and we'll see how you do.
Okay, well, my wisdom is flat, so I'm just rolling a straight-up 2d6.
All right.
I have rolled a 3 and a 6. That is a 9, sir.
All right, so that gives you a partial success. So if you look at the Travel Dangerous Territories, it says you choose one and the GM chooses one. So you get to pick one of the things listed here. What do you think?
I'm going to choose, I mark one more use of space rations.
Okay. So I'm not sure that your character would have space rations just because you're a robot.
I know. I just won the game.
I know. Let's say that you have some on you for some reason. Why would you have rations with you?
Oh, well, someone's worried about their little dog.
Okay.
In the cold, so I've brought the dog along with me.
Aha. Okay. All right. We'll say that you have 3 space rations, so now you're down to 2. All right. And then I get to pick something. I'm going to say that you draw unwanted attention, because that's always fun.
I was hoping for that. I almost chose it myself, but choosing space rations just seemed like...
Yeah. So the other option that we didn't pick was something where you mark a use of a resource. There's a number of items in the game that have uses. Ammo, recharge, specialized tools, and utility belt all have uses, which there are certain moves that will cause you to mark those. So, but we didn't choose that one. All right. So the unwanted attention is you're coming over a rise. So this place is rocky but covered in ice. So there's mountains and valleys and things on this planet. And you come over this rise, the Plusbot comes over the rise, and you can see in the distance with your scanners and your optical sensors, you can see that the colony is about half a day away now. So you've traveled for half a day or so. You can see kind of a path forward to get to the colony. So you start to descend this rise and go down into this valley. And as you get closer to the bottom of the valley, the ice and snow is fairly thick here. Because of your metallic body, you're probably sinking down into about your knees or so in snow as you get down towards the bottom of this. And as you come to the bottom of the valley, you hear this rumbling sound from nearby, and the ground starts to kind of move a little bit under your feet. I will say about 40 feet away from you, something pops out of the snow. And ice.
Nice. I love it.
And it's this giant blue worm-looking creature that pops out.
That does not look good.
What do you think about this?
Boxy, stand back, he says to
Boxy.
the small orange curly-haired dog.
Yes.
And he's just going to go ahead. If this thing does not show any signs of human intelligence, he will shoot it with a matter gun.
Totally. All right, so I'm going to, before we do this, I'm going to introduce the milestone because I forgot to do that. So the milestone is escape the ice planet.
Nice.
What you're going to do now is you're going to mark 2 of your drives. So you see you have 6 of them. You can mark any 2 that you want. And when you do those things, you get to mark XP for those.
I want to prove innate superiority to biologicals.
Yeah, totally.
Mostly because that's a biological worm.
Right.
And I think protect someone from imminent danger.
Okay, sure. You're also proving your innate superiority because you're trudging through the ice and snow and the people are left on the ship. So you're already sort of doing that.
Looks like I got an XP already. All right.
Yeah. So you're going to mark 2 because we're going to do double XP for this.
Sweet.
So the design intent is that you'll mark once per scene, you're going to mark XP for the same sort of thing. So you can't keep spamming, like if it says like heal somebody, you can't just keep doing that 6 times in the same scene and get XP each time. If you heal different people, you might. But if you heal the same person over and over again, you wouldn't get XP for that. So anyway.
Makes sense.
All right, so you have this big ice worm looming. What do you think?
I think it's time to try out this matter gun that I have.
Yeah, I think Boxy's yipping at it, and he's kind of approaching it sort of cautiously.
Oh, back, Boxy, back. And he will charge up the matter gun and fire on this bluish worm.
All right, so there is a move called Shoot, which is a basic move, and that sounds like what you're triggering here. You attack an opponent with a ranged weapon, roll plus dex.
Roll plus dex. Luckily, I have a plus 2 dex because I just rolled a 6, so that is a mixed success.
All right, so you've got a partial success. So on Shoot, any success you get, so any 7+, you deal your damage. On a partial, you also pick one of the following under Shoot. So you'll see you have 3 options there. So which one do you want?
It looks like I can fire several shots. I can move to get the shot, which puts me in danger, or take what I can get, subtract 1d6. I'm never going to subtract 1d6 right now. This early. I don't know how tough this thing is, so I will fire several shots and mark 1 ammo or recharge.
All right, so you'll notice that the matter gun has an ammo value, and so what you're going to do is you're going to mark one of those. I believe it has ammo of 3.
Yeah, it has an ammo of 3.
All right, so you're going to mark one of those. In addition, your matter gun adds damage, so it adds a static damage bonus. I believe it's plus 2.
Plus 2, yes.
So you're gonna roll your damage die and add 2.
Because I'm tough and all that stuff, I roll a d8. I rolled a 4 plus 2 of 6. Damage is 6.
Cool. All right. So this thing appears to have a little bit of armor, which resists some of your damage, but you definitely damage it. So it takes 4 damage out of 6, and it doesn't look real thrilled about all this, but you can continue. So it looks like what's happening is it is snapping at you as it's approaching you as you're trying to shoot it. You pepper it with your matter gun, rail gun, whatever you want to call it, and you hit it square in the chest, I guess. But it is still kind of looming over you, trying to eat you.
I'm going to move in front of Boxy because he was yapping and make sure that I draw its attention while I'm going to fire at it again while making sure that Boxy's safe.
You can, if you want to protect the Boxy, you can also trigger the defend move to defend Boxy if you want.
I like to do that. That sounds fun.
Now the robot has a special version of defend called Avowed Protector, which is better than the standard defend move.
Oh.
So you probably want to use that instead of defend. It works very similar to defend, it's an upgraded version. It has better options.
And it also uses plus con, which is a 0 for me. So let me go ahead and roll that.
Yeah.
Oh, I failed.
Uh-oh. Yeah, so how do you try to defend Boxy? What are you doing?
Oh, Plusbot 9000 stomps over to stand and interpose himself between Boxy and this blue worm.
All right. As you do that, you step on a frozen river that you hadn't really noticed, and your weight cracks the top layer of ice, and you sink into this frozen river. In addition, as you're slumping into the ice, and you're probably about neck deep in the water, you also notice that the worm burrows underground.
That's true. That's how it got here. That's not good.
And you don't know where it went. Now what? Now, you did try to defend Boxy, so you will trigger your drive. You don't have to succeed for those things. You just have to try to do it.
Cool. I'm less worried about this worm and more worried about getting on and making sure that Boxy doesn't get hurt. So I'm going to try to clamber out of this icy river.
Totally.
Grab Boxy and start lugging it.
All right, so this sounds like a great time to trigger Defy Danger. We don't have a specific move to get you out of an icy river, so we're going to Defy Danger. And it sounds like you're using Strength to pull yourself out of the icy river. So why don't you roll plus your Strength? We'll see how you do.
Okay, my Strength is a +1. Oh, goodness, I've just rolled a 3 + 1 of 4.
All right, so that's exciting. All right.
Yeah.
So the Plusbot 9000 tries to get out of the frozen river, and in doing so crushes more of the ice around him, and you start flowing down the river under the ice. So you kind of slip under the ice, and you're now flying down this frozen river towards some unknown... You don't know where this goes now, so you're just under the water. The frozen water flying towards something, and Boxy is long past. You don't know where he is.
Yes, that is a perfect cliffhanger for what's going to happen to Plusbot 9000. Oh, no.
That's right. Oh, what about poor Boxy out in the snow?
Oh, poor Boxy. Oh, man, that was great. And again, there's a link in the show notes to the Kickstarter, which is live until what point?
February 7th, I believe, is the last day you can back.
Cool. All right. Well, best of luck on the Kickstarter, Rory, and thanks so much for being on the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Rich.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at @+1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com. Thank you.